Yeah, good evening, everyone. Today we continue Gemara Berachot. Before we jump into the Gemara, I have a question for you. Here's my question. Do you think, from a Torah knowledge perspective, do you think you can become a talmid chacham and gain everything that you want with books? Or do you think you have to, let's say, have go to a class or have a rabbi and build relationships? Are you able to, in this day and age, are you able to, Shalom Aleichem, do it, let's say, just by listening to recordings and studying on your own? In other words, can you do it through independent study? Or do you think in order to have greatness in Torah knowledge, you need to have a relationship with a rabbi or a teacher? What do you think? You think you need to have a rabbi, okay? 100%. Why do you think that?
The issue with text is always that it's a translation of what someone's intent was. You don't know what their intent was by reading it because it's words on a page. It's not the person's. You don't see his facial expression when he says it.
Very interesting. Okay.
Like the Constitution was written 200 years ago. We don't know what the intent of that document was today. The right to bear arms. Okay, what was the purpose of that? Was it just to shoot someone because you felt like it, or was it to prevent, let's say, a civil war, or to prevent the government?
Right.
You need that dialogue with someone to kind of get the intent of what the text says.
Okay, very good. So your reasoning for needing to have a relationship with a rabbi is to make sure that you're understanding the intentions correctly, the intent correctly. You can study something, but you may not understand the correct intention. So while you're reading it and you're translating it and it makes sense, you could be completely misinterpreting it. Okay, very good. In other words, one way that I once heard this explained is that a translation is, by definition, an interpretation. When you translate something, you're already interpreting it. By definition, the second you translate it, you're already interpreting it because there's different translations, different interpretations. Very good. Any other reasoning as to what?
What about now Zoom?
Okay, Zoom and YouTube. Okay. So what? Okay, very good. So if you want to come to understand someone's facial expressions, so attending a virtual class or attending a live class, you're saying could solve the same purpose to solve that problem. Very good. Is there another reason why it would be important to have a relationship with a rabbi or a teacher or a mentor? Yeah. Okay, very good. So that's another idea, that sometimes the issues that you have, the questions that you have are not written somewhere, or you don't know where it's written. Who are you going to ask? You can't Google everything. So, although you could Google most things, but you're saying sometimes you have a personal question that you need to ask someone where it's not black and white. Okay, so that's another reason why relationships with a teacher is important. And any other ideas? You have one?
Sometimes you need someone to like push you and elevate you and make you work hard.
Okay, discipline to push you, to motivate you, to give you a nice push. Very good. Also, extremely important. You're not going to get that out of a book. You're out of the book, you'll get the knowledge, but you're not going to get the motivation. Here, you have someone to give you the motivation. Very good. You had an idea?
I was going to say the same thing again.
Okay.
But to further that, Judaism like built on the teacher-student relationship.
Wow.
You need to have knowledge.
Unbelievable. The importance of tradition and the importance of teacher-student relationship in our religion. This is the first Mishnah Perkei Avot. Is Moshe kibel Torah Sinai? Moshe received the Torah from Sinai. Sarah Yoshua gave it to Yoshua. Yoshua gave it to the Nevi'im. Nevi'im gave it to the Zikanim. There's a chain all the way from the times of Har Sinai all the way down to us. So there's a tradition. Okay, very good. Yes.
You could be wrong.
Right. You could be reading something out of the book and completely not understanding it. Oh. Okay. I think you're saying another thing though. So you're bringing up a very good point, how the Gemara has arguments. Okay. So what advantage do you get from having a relationship with someone that over reading out of a book? There's different opinions.
To bring different perspectives.
So one of the things that you get is when it comes to halacha, you get clarity. You could have 20 opinions. Here, you wanted to know what bracha you're supposed to say on schnitzel. You could say this, you could say, well, it depends on how much breading it is, and it depends on the flavoring. You could do this. Or you know what would be great? if you were sitting at a table with Rabbi Ben Chaim and someone brings schnitzel in front of him. You don't know what bracha to say? Just watch him. See what bracha he says. Then you could discuss something for hours, or you could just see it. Okay, with that background, we are going to get into tonight the importance of relationships with a teacher. Before that, there's another step of the Gemara that we have to get into, and then we're going to jump to this. It's a very, very, very important topic, so we will expand on it because it's not just about what the Gemara says. I think it's something that's worth expanding. We'll get to that, but first, we need to pick up from where we left off last week. We are in a series of teachings by Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai, or Rebbi Yochanan in the name of Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai. I'm going to put on the screen what we did so far last time. Okay, statements of Rebbi Yochanan quoting Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai. This is where we're up to. Last time's class, okay, we talked about how the name of Adonai, the first time it was used by someone in Torah is Abraham Avinu. And then we spoke about how you shouldn't appease someone at the time that they're angry. There's a time for everything, and there's a time, sometimes it's the right thing, but at the wrong time. Then we spoke about why Leah named Yehuda that, because she was thanking Hashem, the first person in the Torah to thank Hashem explicitly. We spoke about a tarbut ra'ah mitoch beito, someone who had a child, degenerate child. It's more difficult for that person than if they had to fight a war. And then the last thing we did last week was speaking about contending and arguing and provoking, going against the Rasha, standing up against the Rasha. Now, tonight, we're going to do the final three statements of Rebbi Yochanan quoting Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai. We're going to pick up from Zayin Amud Bet. In the art scroll, it's 7B-5. Ready? Let's go. 7B-5 in the art scroll, starting at the top of the page. Let's go. Rebbi Yochanan Bar Yochai. This is statement number 6. One who sets and establishes a place to pray, a specific designated spot for his tefillah, oyevav nofelim tachtav. His enemies will fall in front of him. We spoke about makom kavua for tefillah. We spoke about it a few times. Abraham Avinu did it is the source that we had. But now what the Gemara is saying is that someone who has a set established place, his enemies will fall. Okay, it's nice. Shneimar, v'samti makom la'ami le'Yisrael. Look at the context of this pasuk. This is a context with David HaMelech, where Hashem is saying, I'm going to pick a spot. This is talking about the spot of the Beit HaMikdash. V'samti makom la'ami Yisrael. I'm going to pick a spot for my nation, for Am Yisrael. Untativ. I will plant them there. V'shachan tachtav, they will dwell there. V'lo yagaz od, v'lo yosifu b'nei avla le'anoto, and they will no longer be disturbed. No longer will the b'nei avla, the wicked people, try to hurt them. Le'anoto, to afflict them. How do they translate it? Le'anoto, to torment them. Ka'asher barishona, as they used to. So what this is saying is, I'm going to set a spot for them, and once they have a spot, they won't be able to bother them anymore. Our enemies won't be able to bother Am Yisrael anymore. So this is talking about the makom of the Beit HaMikdash. What Rebbi Yochanan and Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai is saying is that it's also a place of tefillah. V'samti makom la'ami Yisrael. When I establish a place, a designated spot for myself, i.e. for tefillah, then the enemies won't be able to bother me anymore. That's how this is being, this drasha is being made. And the Gemara says, by the way, this pasuk that says they won't be able to bother them anymore, le'anoto, I don't like that sound, but Rav Huna Rameh Ketiv le'anoto, in one pasuk it says to torment them, they won't be able to torment Am Yisrael. Uchtiv lechaloto, there's another pasuk in Divrei Hayamim that says lechaloto, to destroy them. Or actually, the way we have it in our text is levaloto, means to cause them to wither away. So in other words, you have one pasuk that says, Hashem says, I'm going to establish a spot for them, and once they have the spot, the enemies won't be able to hurt them. And there's another line, it says, the enemies won't be able to destroy them. And then the Gemara is saying, Rav Huna is saying, look, those are two different things. To destroy and to hurt is different. You could hurt someone while they're not destroyed, injure them. To destroy is much more. So at first, Hashem says, oh, once you have this place, no one's going to be able to hurt them. Then later he says, you're not going to be able to get rid of them altogether, which sounds like you're still going to be able to hurt them. So that's what Rav Huna is bothered by this difference of text, and he says that's correct. Batchila le'anoto. Initially, when Hashem was giving us the ability to build the Beit HaMikdash, we were behaving in proper ways. Everything was correct. So at that time, our enemies weren't able to even hurt us, to provoke us, to bother us, nothing. But at the end, after we started misbehaving and it came time to destroy the Beit HaMikdash, all Hashem promises us is that our enemies won't be able to annihilate us, to destroy us. To bother us, yes, they can. To hurt us, yes. To kill us, even, yes. They won't be able to completely destroy us, which means that our protection from Hashem is going to be dependent on how we behave. If we behave properly, then the enemies won't be able to hurt us. But if not, all that Hashem is promising is that we'll forever continue to exist as a nation, but we could still get hurt, right? Shalom Neda, Shalom Neda. Okay, so it's somewhat interesting, yeah. So he doesn't say that. All he says is in the beginning this, at the end this. The way the commentators explain, like if you look at the art scroll, Batchila le'anoto, the verse in Samuel 2 refers to the beginning when the temple would first be built. At that time, the assurance was that Israel's enemies would no longer torment them. In the verse in Divrei Hayamim, however, refers to the end when Israel sinned and it was decreed in heaven that they must be tormented. At that time, the prayers of Israel merited that their enemies would not destroy them. That's what their prayers were doing. Okay, I mean, you could, it does, but it doesn't say that explicitly. You need an interpretation. You need a commentary. Okay, so what this is saying is that in the zechut of our home and our tefillot that we pray there, by establishing this place of tefillah, we no longer will get hurt or we won't get destroyed. Can someone remind me ideas as to why conceptually it's so important to have a makom kavua, have a set place for your tefillah? We spoke about it. What's the value of having a set place where I always pray in the same place? Not to get distracted.
Going in routine.
You have a routine, you go into the same thing every single day. It helps give you inertia. Every day you do the same thing, you go to the same spot, whereas you don't have to make a decision every day. Yeah, there was someone on the Zoom wanted to say something.
I was gonna say the distraction thing, but then I thought of another one. If you're going every day, it encourages you to keep going because then when you're not there, the people who sit near you.
Very good, very good, very good. People who sit near you, very good. That's like the positive social peer pressure that we spoke about. If you go to minyan every day and you sit in the same spot, and then one day you're not there, then people can ask you, hey, where were you? And like, you don't want to keep missing it. Very good explanation. Okay, here we go. Next statement of Rebbi Yochanan Mishum Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rebbi Yochanan Mishum Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Gedola shimusha shel Torah yoter milimudah. Gedola shimusha shel Torah yoter milimudah. Serving Torah, the service of Torah, which means serving a Torah scholar and spending time in his company, is greater than learning Torah. One more time. Let's say this line together because it's a very famous line. Gedola shimusha shel Torah yoter milimudah. Shimush is serving. Serving Torah is greater than learning Torah. And the way this is explained is serving, and it doesn't mean like bringing water, which I'll give you some stories. But serving Torah means spending time, building a relationship, and being around a talmid chacham is better or greater, gedolah, yoter milimudah, shneimar, from learning it. As the pasuk says, Ho Elisha ben Shafat, you have Elisha who was a prophet, and the pasuk is praising him and it's introducing him. It says, here is Elisha ben Shafat, Asher yatzak mayim al yedei Eliyahu. And you know what he did? He poured water on Eliyahu's hands. Poured water on Eliyahu's hands. It's true that he poured water on Eliyahu Navi's hands, but he was also his top student. He learned from Eliyahu Navi. You have Eliyahu Navi, your number one top student, the one that's involved with all of his decisions. He's always there by his right side. He's always there. And it says like, yeah, whenever Eliyahu Navi's hands get dirty, Elisha, like he brings the baby wipes and he like wipes his hands. What? That's how you're going to introduce Elisha? The answer is yes. Because someone who is in the position where they serve the talmid chacham is greater than someone who just learns from them. Lamad lo ne'emar. It doesn't say that he learned from them. Ela yatzak. It says someone who poured water on him. Teaches you that serving Torah is greater than even learning it. Also, it's the first pasuk. I want to show you this. It doesn't say it here, but I want to show you this, and then I'll come to the questions. Let me show you to the first pasuk of Nach. Anyone know what is the first pasuk of Nevi'im? What is the first book of Nevi'im? Joshua, Yoshua. This is how the first pasuk after the Torah. Vahi acharei mot Moshe eved Adonai. After the death of Moshe, the servant of God. Vayomer Adonai ed Yoshua ben Nun. God spoke to Yoshua, Misharet Moshe, the servant of Moshe, the attendant of Moshe, Lemor, following. The way Joshua is introduced in his book is that he was Moshe's attendant. Do you know who Yoshua was? Yoshua was the one who, number one, he fought the wars. He was the one leading the battles of the Jewish people. He was the one when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai, there was only one other person up there with him. That was Yoshua. He's going up to Har Sinai. Yoshua is there. He was the one, the way Chachamim tell us is that when they would teach Torah, Moshe would take what he learned, first teach it to Yoshua, and then he would teach it to others, and then they would teach it. Moshe taught everything of Har Sinai to Yoshua. And then you say, oh, he was his ball boy, or what is it called in golf? A caddy. His assistant. You're calling him a misharet? The answer is yes. They quote all of the commentators on this pasuk, quote this Gemara. Okay, so we already spoke about some ideas as to why. Let me share some of the ideas. But as we said, why is it better or greater to serve a talmid chacham and to learn from him? So one of the explanations that everyone says is that when it comes to halacha, and you want to know how to practice, if you come to a class, you can learn. There's this opinion, there's that opinion. There's some people say this, some people say that. We're not sure what to do with this, we're not sure what to do with that. But the best way to learn something is just to watch someone. Sometimes you could be learning. I don't know if anyone here has been in Rabbi Ben Chaim shiur. Rabbi Ben Chaim shiur, you've been in Rabbi Ben Chaim shiur. So you could spend an entire semester learning Hilchot Shechita, an entire 6 months learning the laws of Shechita. Or you could spend one Tisha B'Av with him in the afternoon. What does he do? Or not even a Tisha B'Av. It could just be like a random Tuesday in Washington Heights, or you just like bring some chickens to Wayu. They even do it here. I'm pretty sure they do it here. You just bring some chickens. Now what happens? He'll do Shechita. He'll show you the knife. And I'll show you how to check the knife. And I'll pass around the knife, or maybe he won't, but I'll pass around the knife to show you how to check if it's sharp. And then after that, he's going to show you the chicken. He's going to show you where everything is while it's alive. And then you'll do a bracha. He'll say the bracha of the shechita. And you'll see how he does it. You see how he holds it. You could spend months studying this stuff, but just observing it once. And then you can see opening it up, checking the esophagus, checking the trachea, making sure that all of that is cut in the proper way for shechita. Then opening it up, taking out the Kurkavan, taking out the this, taking out the heart, taking out the lungs, taking out tiny things like that, checking the wings. Just from a chicken. Oh, then you move on to a goat or a sheep. Wow, the amount of stuff you could learn. There's like a famous story. I'll just say this thing about the Kurkavan. How do you translate Kurkavan? Anyone know? It's either the gizzard or the crop. The crop? I think it's called a crop. There's a part of I forgot the translation. It's called the Kurkavan. There's a part inside of the bird that it's part of its digestive tract, right? And it's a crop, okay? C-R-O-P. It's part of its digestive tract. That means when it eats food, it goes into there. And there's one of the signs of a kosher bird. It's called Kurkavan niklaf. That you could take this stomach or Kurkavan, this like part of it. Let's just call it a stomach for lack of a better term. And you can sort of peel the inner membrane from the outer membrane. Okay, so like you could sort of like pull it and it's like layers. Okay. One of the signs of a kosher bird is that you could easily do this. If you were to get the crop of a hawk or a vulture, that thing is so strong. It's a muscle. It's so strong and so powerful. You can't peel anything with your fingers. That thing is like powerful. Okay. You get something of an eagle, but a chicken you can't. A pigeon you can't. Kurkavan niklaf. So there's like this famous funny story that Rebbi Yochanan loves saying when you learn Hilchot Shechita. How one time there was a woman who had a chicken in her home and she did shechita, and after she did shechita, she pulled out the kurkavan and there was a problem with it. And she didn't know, is this kosher animal or not? Is the bird kosher? Because if there's a issue with it and it's not healthy, then the animal is not kosher. So she takes it to the rabbi and she shows it to the rabbi and she says, Rabbi, is my chicken kosher? And the rabbi looks at it and he turns, he picks it up, sniffs it, turns around. He has no idea what this is. And then all of a sudden she says, Rabbi, this kurkavan, it's punctured. Is my animal kosher or not? And then the rabbi says, oh, oh, this is the Kurkavan Hakadosh, the holy Kurkavan that I spent so much time studying about. Meaning, he spent so much time studying it. It's the Kurkavan Hakadosh, but he has no idea what it looks like. Rabbi Yochanan loves saying the story because, like, all you got to do is spend 1 hour and you learn all of the halachot, just like that. So going back to this concept of Gedolah Shimusha Shel Torah Yoter Min Limuda, serving the Torah is greater. Well, it's called a gizzard. It's a gizzard. Okay, I hedged myself. I said it's one or the other, so I'm fine. You were wrong, not me. Kidding. Yeah, it's called a gizzard. For Kurkavan, it's called a gizzard. Okay, it's part of the just call it a stomach, right? It's part of the digestive tract of a bird. But the point is, how if you go to one class, Rebbi Yochanan, on how to do shechita and you see the shechita, you're going to learn more than all of the halachot. There's another. So, okay, so this makes sense. This makes sense of. You ever heard like shimush talmidei chachamim, following the rabbi around? Rama, I feel like you've done this before. You've definitely done this before. You follow a rabbi around, and whatever they say, whatever they need, you do it. And along the way, you end up learning a lot. So actually, this Rabbi Leibowitz was saying a story about himself. Once Rabbi Hershel Schechter, the Rosh Yeshiva from YU, needed a ride back from the airport. So Rabbi Leibowitz went to pick him up. Rabbi Leibowitz himself is the Rosh Yeshiva. So one big rabbi went to pick up the other rabbi. So when Rabbi Schechter saw him, he's like, "What are you doing picking me up from the airport? Like, you should be teaching. You should be like, what are you coming here?" He's like, "What do you do?" The Gemara says, serving the rabbi is greater than even learning it. He says, that's not what this means. This means serving and learning from them and spending time with them and learning. It doesn't mean to pick me up from the airport. You're my cab driver. And then he's like, okay, but how am I supposed to learn from you if I don't spend time with you? This is how I found my time with you. I got you in the car, trapped in the car for an hour. Okay, so this is the best way to learn. But it is very true that spending time with chacham, you learn from them, you learn from their actions. You get, as Elon said, you have a personal opportunity to learn from them. But the key, the way commentators explain, is that you get clarity. There's always opinions. You could read a book and you could ask what bracha you're supposed to say, how you're supposed to say it. But then you sit with the rabbi makes a bracha, you know what the answer is. I have one more story about this and then I'll move on. We had a siyum here. When did we have a siyum here? Masechet Ta'anit. We did it that was Rosh Hashanah. The 10th year we did Masechet Ta'anit. So I remember there were brava wraps, and I was sitting at the table, and to my left, there was a chair in between us. I think it was Dr. Chodadadian was sitting between us. I was sitting here. I think it was him, and then Rabbi Ben Chaim was there. He was eyeing the bravas. Rabbi Ben Chaim was eyeing the bravas. He really wanted the bravas. Okay, and so like he wanted a no. He's like, and he said, "Is this hamotzi or is this mizonot?" I'm like, "You're asking me." I'm like, "I have no idea." I'm like, "I have no idea." And then like, I'm telling a story. I wasn't asking a question. I'm telling you the story of like what happened. So Rabbi Chaim was asking like, "Is this a hamotzi or mizonot?" So then he's like, "Where's this from?" When he said House of Subs. So he asked Dr. Chodadadian. He said, "Find out. Call him. Is it mizonot or is it hamotzi?" So Dr. Chodadadian calls him, the owner of House of Subs, and he says, "Mizonot wraps." Like, mizonot wraps. And everyone was like, "Okay, it's mizonot." He said, "Mizonot," and he ate the brava. So now, when I go to somewhere and they ask me, "What's the bracha on House of Subs?" Someone says, "Well, it's like this, it's like this." I'm like, "Listen, you could talk to me for an hour. I have this vision. I have this movie in my mind. Rabbi Ben Chaim wanted it. He asked. He says mizonot. He said mizonot. He ate it. That's it. That's it. I don't need to hear any more discussion." Now, if you talk about shiurs, then it's a whole different story. Shiurs bravas are a different story. They make them out of something else. But actually, I think the shiurs bravas are hamotzi. But the House of Subs are mizonot. And if anyone has a problem with that, look, I'm just following the story I learned from my rabbi. This is the concept of Gidolah Shimusha Shel Torah Yoter Min Limuda. You get to see in action. That's it. Now, is it possible the rabbi will make mistakes? Of course, it's possible. So that doesn't mean you shouldn't ask. If you're not sure, you should ask. We're going to see in our Gemara how there would be students that would like follow the rabbi into the bathroom. It's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I have to learn." "Learn what?" He's like, "No, I have to learn. I have to learn how to do it." "What are you learning?" And then there would be another one. The Gemara is going to tell us what? Yeah, that the student got himself underneath the bed as the rabbi was with his wife. He's like, "What are you doing there?" He's like, "I'm going to learn." Learn? You're going to throw you into prison. You're going to learn. You're acting like this. But no, okay, it's Torah. And he says, "Torah, I need to learn." In other words, there's this idea of the best way to learn is to attach yourself to someone. So coming back to the discussion that we were saying, we're living Baruch Hashem, and then we have to continue. We're living in a day and age that there's Torah is everywhere. If you open your eyes, if you're willing to, you could find it everywhere. You could get it in your ears, you get it in front of your eyes. You have the books. These R-Scroll works. Like, understand that 50 years ago, you didn't have this. You could study any page of Gemara with complete explanation, and you could have all of the commentaries and all of the cross references. We have this. You have every single shiur you could imagine. Every Gemara class, there's 20 shiurim online, different topics: Tanakh, Musar, Machshava, whatever you want. It's available for free. For free, just go online and find it. Videos, okay? But there's one thing that you miss with all of this, and that's the relationship. The relationship with the rabbi is extremely important. Having that relationship. So to your point, understanding the facial expressions of the rabbi for the class is one thing, but we're talking about something deeper than that. The relationship with the rabbi, the teacher-student relationship, is at the core of Yahadut. You absolutely need to have that. So on one hand, when you have the opportunity to learn, you have to take every single second that opportunity to learn. But then there's a whole other element of Gidolah Shimusha Shel Torah Yoter Min Limudah. Serving it and watching it and observing it is greater, because there are certain things that are going to penetrate your mind and you're going to be able to remember, and it'll impact you forever. Okay, yes?
I'll tell you one story. When I was single, I used to go to Israel. I used to call Rabbi Hillel and be like, can I come over for Shabbat? Every time he said, come over. And I would sit right next to him at a Shabbat dinner table. He has 19 children and 240 grandchildren. So every Shabbat, he has different families visiting that are his kids and grandkids. So you have to remember all their names. So I sat right next to him. Very interesting. They say Hamotzi, and he cuts the challah, and he calls them by name. They come, they kiss his hand, and they get a piece of challah. Just so interesting to see the inside of a home of a gadol, and he's really gadol, and he's also so anav.
Unbelievable.
And I probably spent maybe 10 Shabbatot, maybe more, sitting right next to him and just watching how he interacts with
Unbelievable. So I don't know why my neshama told me that Rama did something like this. I knew it. I knew when I was talking about this, I'm like, for sure Rama does this. Now he tells me he spent 10 Shabbats at someone's house that his kids would have to come once every 19 weeks, but Rama was there for 10 weeks in a row. Okay, Baruch Hashem, even his own kids didn't even have that access to him, and you had that access. Okay, Baruch Hashem. All right, let's keep going. Let's keep going. Okay, here we go. Continuing the Gemara. Amalei Rebbi Yitzchak Rav Nachman. Oh, let's talk about going to minyan. Going to minyan, praying in minyan, praying at the same time in minyan. Okay, important stuff. We're going to talk about Bet Kenesset. Yeah.
That also means that
No. Shimush Torah is Shimush Talmidei Chachamim, which means the discussions and learning from the rabbi and seeing and observing them. It means studying from the rabbi. It means studying from the rabbi. That's what it means. So you're talking about like Loha Midrash Ikar Ela Ma'aseh. Doing the mitzvah is more important than learning about the mitzvah. But this context is very clear because it quotes a pasuk. What's the pasuk? It says Elisha was his servant, or he poured water on his hands, and that pour water from his hands is greater than learning. Okay, here we go. Let's go. We're going to talk a little bit about Bet Kenesset and minyan. Amar le Rebbi Yitzchak le Rav Nachman. Once Rebbi Yitzchak said to Rav Nachman, "Mai ta'ama lo atemar lebeit Kenesset letzaduyeh." How come you weren't in Kenesset? What's the reason that you weren't in Kenesset? So it seems like Rabbi Yitzchak was taking attendance, and as he's looking at his attendance sheet, he sees Rav Nachman isn't there. So he says, "Why didn't you come to Kenesset to pray? To Bet Kenesset to pray?" Amar le lo yachilna. He's like, I wasn't feeling good. I couldn't come. What do you want from me? I wasn't feeling so good. So Amar le likanfe lemar asra v'letzluyeh. So how come you didn't gather 9 other people, minyan, to come pray by you? If you weren't feeling good, now we're not talking about a regular Joe, we're talking about Rav Nachman. So you have the great rabbi, wasn't coming to minyan. So Rabbi Yitzchak told him, why were you in minyan? He says, I couldn't come. So why didn't you make a phone call or two and gather some people? Just like that, you'll have a minyan at your house. And he says, it was difficult for me. Now, what does that mean? Was it difficult for him to gather the people? Was it difficult for him to even be in the, maybe he wasn't feeling good, even standing up in front of the people? He said, I couldn't. So he said, okay, I have another idea for you. Why didn't you tell the Gabbai of the Kanisa, When they are praying in the minyan, that he should come tell you that they're going to pray in the minyan. In other words, at least you should have asked the gabbai what time they're going to pray, so that this way you could pray at the same time as them. Now nowadays we have minyans by the clock. They didn't have it like that. They did it by sunrise or something. So, like he's saying, at least you should have told the gabbai of the Kenesset, whenever they start doing Berachot in the morning, that they're going to start Baruch Shamar in 10, 15 minutes, come let me know so that you could pray at the same time as them. So his response is, Amarle, my kulehai, what's the big deal? Why do I need to pray at the same time that they're praying? I couldn't make it to Kenesset. I wasn't feeling good, and I wasn't in a situation to be able to bring people for me. Now you're saying I have to pray at the same time that they're praying? I'm praying alone anyway. Why do my kulehai? Why do I have to go out of my way to find out what time they're praying? Amarle, he says, here's why. The Amar Rebbi Yochanan Mishum Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai, because Rebbi Yochanan says in the name of Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai. This is the quote. This is quote number 7, I think, at this point, or 8. Amarle Rebbi Shimon. Rebbi Yochanan says in the name of Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and now we're turning to Chet Amud Aleph. My dichtiv, this pasuk that we read in Mincha prayer. Va'ani tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon. For me, va'ani, as for me, tefilati lecha Adonai, my prayer to you, God, et ratzon, is at a time of favor. Hashem, I pray to you at the time of favor. Emata et ratzon. When is that time of favor? Bisha'a sha'tzibur mitpalalin. The time that the minyan prays. Unbelievable. So you have this statement of Rebbi Yochanan and Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai that says the time of minyan is a time of favor, is an et ratzon. So that even if you're not going to be praying with the minyan, you should aim to pray at the same time as the minyan. You aim to have your amidah start at the same time as the minyan's amidah. Okay, so this is, and what's his source? His source is from this pasuk, is Va'ani tefilati lecha Adonai, my prayer to you, God. When he says this, is this in singular or is it in plural? Singular. Va'ani, as for me, an individual, I'm praying alone. My prayer, I'm going to do at the time of the Et Ratzon. Oh, so you see how they're reading this pasuk. It's one person praying, but he's going to pray at a specific time. What's that time? The time of the minyan that he's not praying with. The time that they pray. I'll pray the time that they pray. That's one source. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina, Amar Me'acha. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chanina says, I have another source. From Yeshaya, Komar Adonai, Hashem said, Be'et Ratzon aniticha. At the time of favor is the time that I have answered you. Again, Hashem is saying, I answered you at that time of favor. What is that? That's when he prayed without a minyan. Another pasuk, we're just going to go through this. Rabbi Achab, Rabbi Chanina, Amar Me'acha, a third source. Hen el kabir v'lo yimas. This is a pasuk in Eov that says God is strong v'lo yimas, and he doesn't despise anyone. Uchtiv pada v'shalom nafshi. He saved me. Hashem saved me. Mikarav li ki berabim hayu imadi. At the time when others were with me, when the multitudes, the rabim, were with me. Again, it's in the singular. Nafshi, my soul, hayu imadi, were with me. At the time that the rabbim were praying, I also prayed, and that's why Hashem answered me. There's these three sources. All of them are to come to teach us the same concept. The concept being that if someone is not praying with minyan, they can at least tap in and pray at the same time as the minyan. There's value in that. That's what we're learning from this statement. I'm just going to flip to the screen over here. That is, I believe, number 8. Okay, so let me just, because I missed a few. One second. These are the next 3 that we did. Establishing a set place for tefillah, attending to a talmid chacham, that's shimusha shel Torah. And now, minyan time is favorable, if not in the minyan. Okay, so this is the next statement that we learn. That we're learning here. That one time Rav Nachman wasn't feeling well. He didn't go to camp. He said, Rav Yitzchak said, how come you didn't go? He said, I wasn't feeling good. He said, how come you didn't bring people to you? He said, I couldn't. He said, okay, so at least you should have prayed at the same time as the minyan. And he said, why? And he said, because we have a statement from Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai that says, Va'ani, as for me, tefilati lecha Adonai et ratzon. I'm going to pray at the time of ratzon. When is that? The time of minyan. And we have other sources. Yes, question.
Assuming that they prayed their prayers at the earliest time possible.
are we assuming that they prayed at the earliest time possible? So I guess we'll get into it. It's a good question about when would they pray. We're going to get into times of minyanim later on. There is a group called the Vatikin who were the most meticulous in the mitzvah that they would pray shacharit the first time possible. But when you say that a group does it, the very fact that you say that means that others don't, right? That only the Vatikin do, not everyone else. Arvit en la keva, the Mishnah tells us that there is no set time. Mincha, there's different opinions as to whether it's better to do it in the beginning of the day, to do it at the end of the day. Actually, it's probably better based on the Gemara. We'll get into these topics, do it at the end of the day. So I would say that, yeah, probably you have people praying Amidah at Netz, and you have people praying Mincha right before Shkiyat HaChama, and you have people praying Arvit right after by Tzedek Kochavim. But in your town, is what it's saying. In your town, the time that minyan is set is when you should be praying. So you're asking a good question. Your question is basically implicitly saying, okay, if I'm praying somewhere in the world, you know these minyan factories? You ever been to these? You go to Bnei Brak? Rama, for sure you. Also, yeah. What? Monsey, Queens, Harnof. Basically, even Shara Rachamim is getting there. We're getting there. Basically, it's like every 15 minutes is another minyan. You just walk in and you're going to catch a minyan. Now, depending on what you want to do, you could catch the end of the minyan and say, I'm done. All right, there are some people, but like a mincha minyan, Arvit minyan, 2 a.m. Right in Bnei Brak, you go at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., they have a minyan for Arvit. So to Kevin's point, there's always praying. Okay, but we're talking about in your area. Is that like what your question was? Or?
I was saying more so that could he just be saying that, I assume they don't have clocks, like you should be notified of when the earliest time is to pray, which is what we do.
Okay, yeah. It could be that that's what he was saying.
It's the optimal time whenever they follow.
Right.
Not necessarily just because they're praying.
Very nice. Okay, very good. You're saying how his point wasn't find out what time the minyan is praying so that you could pray at the same time as the minyan. His point was find out what time everyone is praying because that's the best time to pray. It's like really what you're saying. Okay, very interesting idea.
Is tefillah considered the time of the beginning of Baruch Shamar or straight, or could that be the time of Amidah? Because tefillah is really Amidah.
Okay, very good question. So when we're talking about lining up your tefillah with them, what we're talking about is the Amidah. Amidah, tefillah b'tzibur.
Tefillah here starts at 7:45 to 7. I know the exact time when they're going to start at home.
So I think you're asking a good question. Let's say there's a 7:45 minyan here. They are probably starting Shemona Esrei between 8 to 8:05. Okay, somewhere between there. You don't have to hit it on the nail, but you should plan to pray at 8 o'clock as opposed to saying latest shacharit is at 10 o'clock or 10:30 or 11. I have time. No, there's value. If you're stuck at home one day for whatever reason and you have to pray, at least you should say, you know what, 7:45 I'm going to start so that I'm starting the same time as them. But the main thing is to get the time of the Amidah.
Also, why do you assume that Ba'ani means that you're praying alone? It could just mean my prayer is at the time of tefillah to join everyone else. Why are you assuming that person is by himself?
Okay, so this is the teaching of Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai is teaching us that there's value in praying at the same time. He's telling us that. But what's his source? He goes to pasuk. The pasuk is not necessarily. The pasuk is talking about David HaMelech. David HaMelech is saying, this moment that I'm praying to you is a special moment. It's a moment, time of favor. He's not, David HaMelech is not saying, I'm not praying with a minyan, but I'm going to find the time of a minyan, I'm going to pray. He's saying his pasuk. Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai is finding a pasuk to attach his topic to, right? So the source for this is Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And the story that you have behind it is very clear. Because Rabbi Yitzchak tells Rav Nachman, why aren't you praying at the same time the minyan is praying? He's like, why do I need to? Because this is what Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, you should pray at the same time as them. So it's not that we in this Gemara are using this pasuk to learn it. It's that we are following the halacha of Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai. That's his source. That's where and the Gemara gives us other sources for it as well. Okay? Good? Has anyone ever tried to do this? There's no shame. Anyone ever, it happens, you pray at home sometimes. It happens all the time. Good. At least you're praying, right? You're praying at home. So now we have a way to tweak it. One thing to tweak is the Arvit time. There are people that they pray Arvit before they go to sleep. I don't know. People do this or no? When do you pray Arvit? If you have to pray Arvit at home, do you have a set time to do it? You volunteer, so I'm going to pick on you.
I don't pray Arvit.
You don't pray Arvit at home? Okay. Okay, very good. So now we're going to tell you the time to start praying Arvit at home. And you pray, what time do they have Arvit here? 10 o'clock or 10:05? Okay, Andy, 10:05. If from now on, Arvit, if you set on your clock, 10 o'clock, you have an alarm, you got 5 minutes, go to the bathroom, get yourself ready, start Arvit at 10:05. Praying at the same time as the minyan has value. Can you tell me why? So one idea is he's telling us that like Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai is telling us this, but deeper understanding. Why? What's the value in it?
Because once you're praying at that time anyways, you're sort of getting to the stage where I pray every day at 7:45 in the morning anyways. I can go to Kenesset.
Okay, so you're saying how by doing it at the same time, you'll get yourself ready to start going to the minyan. Okay, right, is what you're saying, because like you're following that routine. I mean, in the context of our story, it's not like Rav Nachman was lazy. He wasn't feeling good. So there was still value in him doing it just for those few days. Okay, but yeah, so you're for sure for someone who wants to do it all the time. But what other reason could there be? Yeah.
The nation spares the dance to the minyan.
Very good. It's like you're connecting to Am Yisrael. You're connecting to a minyan. Even though I'm not in the minyan, I am building that connection to the minyan. I think that's what Kevin was saying also, right? The same logic as the makom kavua. What you're doing is you're building. I see. We have a footnote. We have a comment here. What you're doing is like right now, Andy. Me telling you this right now. How you know what? Arvit at home. You do it, no problem. Do it at 10:05. So you do it together with the minyan. This could subconsciously, when you see 10 o'clock, it's like it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? It's like, that was like from when I was a kid. It's 10 p.m. It's 10 p.m. It's time to pray Arvit. Why? Because that's when they're doing it. So it's like you're connecting yourself to something much greater than yourself, and hopefully Hashem will answer your tefillot also for him. So let's see what Cody says. Cody says, maybe your prayers will go up to Hashem alongside the minyan because it's all at the same time. Exactly. Very good. So it's like you're somewhat joining forces with the group of the minyan. And the way chachamim explain is that when someone prays them in a minyan, even if there are things that we've done wrong, we're not only praying on our own merit, we're praying on other people's merits. You almost like slip in. You're getting a VIP pass. Because yeah, maybe I did something wrong, but there's enough people in this room that have done good things that my tefillah go up. So you're trying to attach yourself to exactly what Cody is saying. I think this is a good thing to aim for. If you're going to pray at home for whatever reason, let's say you're not feeling good, or you have kids, you have shalom bayit, whatever it is, things come up. But to try to time it out, to do it at the time of minyan, so you have a connection. You have a connection to that minyan, you have a connection to the tzibur. Number one, it gives you more of a responsibility, so you don't forget. So like some people, like I'm saying, they'll pray Arvit when they're ready to go to sleep. At the end of the day, they're ready to go to sleep. But if you say, no, you know what, I'm going to do it at 10 o'clock, again, you're making it in your routine, you're connecting to something greater than you, it has an impact on your kavanah as well. Okay? Of not going to minyan. Yeah, for sure. We've spoken about that. All right, we're going to actually speak about it right now. We're going to continue speaking about the importance of going to a minyan. Okay? Good? Yeah, I'm not saying here don't go to a minyan. What I'm saying here is that if you can't, like Rav Yitzchak couldn't, okay, you have a valid excuse, but you have a choice of when to pray. Very good. We learned this in a Braita also. So not only did we learn this from Rebbi Yochanan in the name of Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but we learned it in a Braita. Rebbi Yochanan says, how do you know that Hashem will not reject the tefillah of the public? You have a tzibur, you have a minyan, Hashem does not reject the tefillah. If you have a minyan coming forward, Hashem has to accept it. Shlemar, hen el kabir v'lo yimas. When you have a God of the multitudes, He won't turn down their tefillah. Uchtiv pada b'shalom nafshi mikarav li. Amar Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem says, Kol ha'osek b'Torah u'v'gimilut chasadim u'mitpalel im hatzibur. Anyone who studies Torah, does chesed, and prays with a minyan, ma'aleh ani alav ki'ilu peda'ani. I view it as though he has redeemed me. It's like Hashem is saying this person is saving me. Through this person, I'm able to give good to people. Li v'levnai u'mibenu umot ha'olam. For me and for my children, because of what this person does. Person studies Torah, does chesed, prays with the minyan. I have to answer his tefillot. And because of that, I'm giving blessing to him and to all of my children. Because of him. Unbelievable. So, of course, praying with a minyan, all you got to do is study Torah, do chesed, and pray with a minyan. That's it. It's the only things you have to do. And Hashem views it as though you saved him. Here we go. Rama, this is for you. Amar Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says, Kol mi sheyesh lo bet Kenesset be'iro. See, it's like we were trying to get on some happy mood here. Saying, you don't want to go to minyan. It's okay. Pray at the same time. Rama is saying, no. B'di'evet. What you're doing is not lachatchila. Okay, that's Reish Lakish here. Kol mi sheyesh lo bet Kenesset be'iro. Anyone who has a bet Kenesset in his city, which, spoiler alert, we all do. Ve'eno nichnas sham leitpalel, and you don't go there to pray. Nikra shachen ra. He's called a bad neighbor. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, Ko amar Adonai, Hashem says, Al kol shechenai haraim, for all of the bad neighbors, hanogeim and achala, that are hurting us, the inheritance, asher hinchati et ami et Yisrael, that everything that I've given to Am Yisrael, they're throwing it out the window. This person, not only is he a bad neighbor, but he's also causing himself and his children to be exiled. Hashem says, I will send them off their land, and the entire Jewish people I'm going to exile because of this. Okay, it's a bit it's taking psukim that have to do with the destruction of Beit HaMikdash, and it's combining it to the fact that the person didn't pray in minyan. Again, these are what drashot are. We're learning drashot here. So of course, someone who has a Bet Kenesset in their home and they won't in their city and they don't go there, what the pasuk is telling us, what the Gemara is telling us, is a bad neighbor, a bad influence. Now, doesn't necessarily mean someone who doesn't go every single minyan. Someone who doesn't go. Imagine you have someone who lives here that's never gone to a Kenesset. You go and you ask them, which is your minyan, what's your Kenesset? I don't have one. Who's your rabbi? I don't have one. Okay, shachen ra. That's what the Gemara is saying. You have to have yourself connected. It's all the same concept. It's flowing to the previous thing that we said also about shimush Torah, having a connection with the rabbi, having a connection to the tzibur, having a connection with the minyan. If someone has a Bet Kenesset in their home and they're in their minyan, in their city, and they're not attending, the bad neighbor. So it's very important. It's very important to make sure you have your Kenesset. Let's keep going. Rama, you're going to love this one. Amru Leila Rebbi Yochanan. They told Rebbi Yochanan something. Rebbi Yochanan lived in Israel. Okay? He lived in Israel. And they once told him, they sent him a message, and he says, Ika Sabeh Bevavel. They're old people in Bavel. That was the report. Rabbi, we want to tell you, Bavel, old people. They exist. Tama, he was shocked. Ve'amar, and he said, what are you talking about? You ever read the Shema Yisrael? Ve'amar, it says in the Torah, Le'ma'an yirbu yamechem v'mei v'nechem al ha'adama. The Torah says that Hashem will give us a long life al ha'adama, on the land of Israel. Ketiv. Aval b'chutz ha'aretz lo. Not outside of Israel. The pasuk says, Hashem says, I'll give you a long life in Israel, not outside of Israel. So how are there people living long lives outside of Israel? So then they explained to him, oh, you know why these people are living long lives? Kevan de Amrele, once they told him, Mikadme umechashche lebe kenishta, these people who are living very long lives, they are very early to Kenesset and they stay late in Kenesset. They come to the Bet Kenesset. Amar, he responded, Hainu da'ane lehu. That's why they're connected to Eretz Yisrael by virtue of the fact that they go to Bet Kenesset. So now what we're learning from this Gemara is that you also merit to living a long life by going to Bet Kenesset. Someone might say, I don't have time. Okay, but let's do some math. Let's say you don't have time, so you don't go to the Bet Kenesset. But then the person's life is cut short 30 years. Maybe you have some time to go to Bet Kenesset. Net, you end up with more time. So we think you don't have time. That's what the concept behind this is. You don't have time. It's much quicker for me to pray here, the 15, 20 minutes, chick-chack. I have to go to Kenesset, I have to come back to Kenesset, I have to do this, I have to do that. It takes so much time. I don't have the time. You get the time. You're going to get the time back. Hashem's going to pay you back for the time. It's all reimbursed. It's not your time that you're losing. So if someone goes to the Bet Kenesset, gets there early, comes there late, which, by the way, I have to say, this is what our elders always tell us, that if you were to go to minyan in Iran, it would be all old people. They wouldn't have young people going there. So, maybe that's why. These are the only ones that are going. Here, Baruch Hashem, if you come here, you go to the other buildings, young people, young children are coming to minyan. every single day, it's really, really, really so tremendous. It's such a tremendous zechut for us that we have young people going to minyanim. It's not just for old people. It's not just for old people. But it makes sense that the people who are older are people that are going to minyan because that's what gives them an elongated life. That's what Rebbi Yochanan said. It's just pretty. I mean, like it's pretty funny that they told Rebbi Yochanan that there were old people that lived old lives, and he was shocked. What? Old people? Like, yeah, it was, you've never seen one. Like, yeah, there's old people. But okay, so it's pretty interesting. I think again, what the Gemara here is doing is connecting the importance of going to Bet Kenesset, importance of going to minyan. If I had to summarize this daf, everything that we're learning, it's all about having a connection to people and to items or to institutions that are outside of you, right? It's not just me praying by myself or me studying Torah from a book for myself, but it's me praying in the Bet Knesset, or at the very least at the same time that the Bet Knesset is praying. And if I don't go there, then I'm a bad neighbor. And I not only study Torah on my own, but I have shimush of Torah, and I go to talmid chacham, and I try to learn from him, and I try to serve him, and I try to do for him. Why? Because that keeps me connected. You see the importance of being connected, not to be isolated, but not to just live on your own, but to have connection. It's extremely important. That's what we're learning in these pages of the Gemara. Any comments? Yeah. Amazing. Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai said he was for 12 years and another 12 years, right?
Oh, it was 24 years? I didn't realize.
I think so. Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai is 24 years. He was in a cave for 12 years.
I was with his son.
He was with his son.
And then he came out, and then they went back for another year.
For 12 years, I think.
Another 12 years?
I'm pretty sure. You could find out. It's just a Google search. Just a Google search. But I think he went in for 12 years and then he came out and he saw people wasting time and he just like blew them up. And he's like, no, you gotta go back in. So he goes back in, 12 years, he cools himself down, and then he comes back out and he sees, oh, look how much people love Torah, how much they love mitzvot. Someone had 2 hadassim in his hand. And he says, what are these hadassim for? He's like, for Shabbat, Zachor Yom Shabbat, Shamor Yom Shabbat. He said, it's so beautiful, they love Torah. And then like his perspective changed. But even that, oh my gosh, it fits so beautifully. Do you hear this? Okay, so what's the story with Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai? He went off into a cave and he studied Torah. He came out of the cave after 12 years, and what happened? He couldn't live with society. The first person he saw wasting time, burnt them, killed them. That's not the proper response. That's not the proper response. So what happened? He went back in until he could live amongst society, and then he came out and he appreciated having those relationships with others. So even within that story, unbelievable, very good. So you have that connection, isolating yourself. Now, of course, there are some that do it. They talk about, what is it? 13 and 13, or just or 12 and 1? Oh, so he was right. So it was 12 and 1, not 12 and 12. 12 and 1. So what's the 12 and 12? Rabbi Akiva and his wife. That's the 12 and 12. Ask ChatGPT, how many years did Rabbi Akiva not see Rachel? I'm telling you, it's 12 and 12. The numbers are in there. I just don't know which story it's for. His wife.
All that time he was
No, he was with, he had minyan. Oh, Rebbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Yeah. No, the story of okay. He went 12 years studying, and then all of a sudden he came back, and his wife, and something happened, and someone said to his wife, your husband's not here. And he said, if I had the ability, I would 24 years. And that was a 12 and 12. I think so. I think that was 12 and 12. Okay, very good. Yeah. Question.
Yeah, I was going to add a commentary that I think this long life also plays into what the non-Jews are now like claiming the benefits of meditation are.
Oh, so you're saying how there's a practical, it's not just spiritual, but it's also something maybe that it helps you psychologically or physiologically or mentally. When you go to minyan, there are benefits of meditation and mindfulness practices that science has proven, and it's true. This is like science, modern science has proven that mindfulness and deep breathing techniques, these things have a physiological effect on you, and they help you. It actually helps. So you could be getting to the point that when someone goes to tefillah, they take all of their pain, all of their sorrows, all of their stresses, put it out the window because you have to focus. And you focus on Modim. Thank you, Hashem, for all the greatness that I have. You have these gratitude things that they do in mindfulness and this meditation. They think about things that you're grateful for. Every day having things that you're grateful for. Yeah, Modim does that. You're thinking Hashem. The very fact that I'm alive. So you're saying how modern science is catching up to this Gemara because these things actually have benefits. It's absolutely true. There's this book written by Tim Ferriss, The Tools of Titans. Tools of Titans. You know what I'm talking about? No. This is a book about this thick, where Tim Ferriss went and he interviewed like some 500 people that are all these like alpha overachieving people that accomplish so much, like CEOs, inventors, all of these things. And something like he tried to find from these 500 interviews that he did of these like top performing people of what are the common strings. And something like 80% of them say that every single day they have a mindfulness practice where they do some sort of meditation. So that's exactly what the connection here is. Like, yeah, so if you come to Kenesset, you do the same thing. If you're focused on tefillah, there is that practice, that mindfulness practice. So beautiful. Very good. Wow. You see this? You come to Gemara, you learn science, it's all connected. You end up living a long life. Baruch Hashem. Okay, let's just continue with this concept of living a long life. Rebbi Yeshua ben Levi gave the following message to his children. This is a message he gave to his kids. Kadimu v'chashichu ve'ayilu lebet kenishta. Get up early, stay late, and go to the Bet Kenesset. Ki heichi letorchu chayeh, so that you live a long life. Amar Ravacha b'Rebbi Yochanan, ma'ikra. What's the pasuk, the proof, the source that you live a long life for spending time in the Bet Kenesset? Ashrei, ma'ikra, the pasuk is Ashrei Adam Shomei Ali. Fortunate is the person that listens to me. Lishkod al deltotai, standing and staying constantly at my gates. Yom yom, every day. Lishmor mizuzot petachai, to guard my doorposts. Someone who comes to my home every single day is praiseworthy. Uchtiv patre, and the next pasuk says, Ki motzei matzah chaim. Whoever finds me by doing this finds life. Hashem says, fortunate is a person that comes to my home every day, and whoever finds me finds life. This is the way to find life, by going to Bet Kenesset every single day. Wow. Wow, this is a powerful stuff. I'm getting motivated. I don't know if you're getting motivated. I'm getting motivated. Just want to stay. I want everyone leave. I want to be the last one out. Get out. Okay, shiurs over. Go home. I'm staying here last. This idea of extending and being committed to Bet Kenesset, you see here, is giving a promise of living a long life. Okay. Now that we quote this pasuk, we're gonna just go on to a chain, what I call the chain agada. This pasuk of Ki motzei matzah chaim, it comes up in another thing. Let's do that, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Okay, good. So you got this idea. This idea here is Rebbi Yeshua ben Levi gave a parting message to his children, and his children was, go to Bet Kenesset, stay in Bet Kenesset, because this way you're gonna end up living a long life. Okay. Once we said this pasuk of Ki motzei matzah chaim, the person who, when someone finds me, they find life. Amar, oh, actually, sorry. Okay, there's one more. There's one more, a Bet Kenesset concept. Actually, this one is a little bit unclear. So let's do this one more Bet Kenesset concept, and then we'll end up with this. Then we have a shiur on Bet Kenesset. Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda says, Le'olam, always, Yikanes Adam Shnei Petachim Bet Kenesset. When you enter the Bet Kenesset, enter through two doorways. Shnei Petachim. Enter the Bet Kenesset through two doorways. Shnei Petachim kasal kadaitach. The Gemara says, literally two doorways. It has only one. You go back and forth. Where's the value in going through a doorway? Ela ema shiur shnei Petachim. It doesn't physically have to be two doorways. It has to be the shiur of two doorways. And then you pray. In other words, it's giving you a shiur. You have to go into the Bet Kenesset for a shiur of two doorways and then pray. Is this clear to anyone? Okay, good, because it's not clear. What does it mean that you should go into the Bet Kenesset for a shiur of two doorways? The commentators, Rashi, for example, and others, explain this on one of two dimensions. Either it's a dimension of physically, meaning don't sit right by the door, but go in a shiur, meaning a distance of what would be 2 doorways. So you can imagine, you have that door over there. Don't sit right there. Go a little bit. Imagine there was like another one. So you bring yourself in a little bit more, which is another way of saying, if we're talking about space, then this is another way of saying, don't sit right by the door. Okay?
Or 2 doors here.
This one happens to be 2 doors. Right, exactly. But what we're saying is like it's not even a physical thing. Because that door and this door, when you come to the room to pray in, don't sit right by the door. Okay? Now let me read to you what Rashi says. Rashi, I'm just going to read it from what I have here. Here it is. Shiur shel shnei petachim rochav. We're talking about the width. Yikanes lifnim shelo yeshiv samuch lapetach. Don't sit right by the door. V'nir'eh alav. Why? Because it looks like kemasui ikuv bet Kenesset. It looks like it's a burden for you to hang out at the bet Kenesset. In other words, you're ready to bounce. V'yeh mezuman, and you're ready samuch lapetach latzet, right next to the door to leave. Why shouldn't you sit right next to the door, like right next to the door? Because what does it look like? It looks like you're ready to jump out. You know what this reminds me of? Yodesh Becher, I used to take the train. And now I work in Great Neck, but I used to take the train. And you would always have those people that like go to the door of the train to stand there, right there, sit right, like the train is going fine, the person is comfortable, then all of a sudden they go into the tunnel of Penn Station, they stand up, they run to the door, they gotta be the first one to leave the train. You gotta get out. That's second. That's what it looks like. You know what I'm talking about or no? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's not this door, it's that door. It's like, oh man, I stood by the wrong door. Right? So the idea of like sitting right by the door is like you want out. You're showing that you're not here. Be present. What are you sitting right by the door? Come in, sit, be comfortable. You have to go afterwards, you go afterwards. But don't. So this is one way according to Rashi. When it says it says enter the Bet Kenesset 2 doorways and then pray, what it's saying is go more than the doorway physically and then pray. Okay? There's another way Rebbi Yochanan tells us is that this does not have to do with space, but it has to do with time. What that means is when you're entering the Bet Kenesset, don't enter and go straight into Amidah, but give yourself a second, the shiur of going through a second door, which means you don't like walk in and jump and then start praying. But hold on a second, come in, focus your thoughts, and now you pray to Hashem. You don't run in and pray. And when this happens, it's like, let's say someone is late for minyan, they just rush in. This happens sometimes. You're late for minyan, you rush in, take a second. Look, walking through a second doorway, you're not talking about much, but what the idea here is that when you go into the Bet Kenesset, take a second to gather your thoughts before you start praying Amidah. Okay? So these are the 2 explanations based on the Rishonim. Yes, question.
Entering our baby Joshua.
So very good. So there is this practice that when you enter the Bet Knesset to say a pasuk before you start praying. There you go. There you go. So this builds in that buffer. Now the truth is you don't need to do that entire pasuk. Let's say you want to pray mincha. All it's asking you is to go into the shiur of 2 doorways. How long is it going through a doorway? I mean, even if you have like a long doorway, it's a second, right? It's not asking for much. I think there's more conceptually here. So that's a great way of doing it. You enter and you say psukim. You say Ashrei, you say Baruch Shamar. You don't go straight into Amidah. Or you say other things. You want to even just pray by yourself. You go in, you're saying a Shila Malot, something beforehand to focus. So here, what we're learning is, and what's the halakha? The answer is both of them. They're both very reasonable and they're both doable. There are times, now, again, I'm not going to pick on anything. Here, all it's telling you is don't sit right by the doorway. But what if you want to sit like right next to the doorway? Are you allowed to? Yeah, you're allowed to. But what the Gemara is teaching us is some sensitivity of when you're coming to the Bet Kenesset, don't be right next to the door because someone will look at you and say like, this person doesn't want to be here. Like, why is it? Oh, they probably have Kaddish or something. And then after the Kaddish, they're going to go. They want to catch a football game or something. So they're upset that this is taking longer. Or when you're coming into the Bet Kenesset, the other concept is take a second. Don't just go straight into it. You're about to say something. Know in front of who you're standing in front of Hashem, in front of God. So these are very important messages about the Bet Kenesset. Okay, any questions on this? Any questions? Okay, so again, I'm not gonna. I've done this in the past. I come late to Kanisa, so I go into the ladies section, the mechitza. But there are times where I'm not late to Kanisa and I'm not in the ladies section, and I say like, "Why are you back there? Come in. There's space." Now, okay, I'm not judging because some people like having their own space. They like, like spacing out and like well, a lot of real estate, right, right, and but there is this idea again. Even if you're going to the ladies section when there's no ladies there, no one sits right on top of the door. Here, the only requirement we're learning is don't sit on top of the door. So you come in, you sit, it's fine. Okay. So when I'm saying this whole idea of mechitza, I'm not saying that you're not allowed to, but this is what I thought of. When I thought of this idea, is like just sitting all the way in the back. Or what else do you think of? You think about like the punk in high school. You go sit in the back row, you go to sleep. You want to put your head against the wall and go to sleep. You want to be part of the minyan. Please come in. You don't need to be right by the door, right? So this is the idea. I'm not saying don't sit in the ladies section. There's nothing wrong with it, unless there's ladies there. Let them have their space. Well, but what I'm just saying this concept of when you come to the Bet Kenesset, you're here, you're present. Don't make it seem as though you're ready to run. And as long as you're here, you're present, you're fulfilling this halacha. Okay? Good? All right. I think we learned a lot about the Bet Knesset tonight. Here at Son, Be'ezrat Hashem, by committing ourselves to coming to the Bet Knesset and praying with the minyan or praying at the same time as the minyan. May Hashem answer all of our tefillot tova. And Be'ezrat Hashem bless Am Yisrael and our zechut. Hazak Baruch, everyone. Hazak Baruch.